Hello, everyone. Aaron Nabus here, and welcome to episode 102 of the Hall H Show. Joining me on this episode is someone that I've been wanting to have on the show for quite a long time now, the multi-talented Jenapher Zheng. She's an actor, gamer, podcaster, Twitch streamer, visual artist, and a writer. Speaking of writing, a short movie that she wrote called Borrowed Light was recently fully funded on Seed and Spark. The campaign ends, I think, on April 14th, I think somewhere around there. And we'll start production soon. We'll talk more about that later. But for now, welcome to the Hall H Show, Jenapher.
Thank you so much. That was such a warm welcome. Hi.
And also, congratulations on, I guess, getting 1,000 followers on your Twitch channel.
Correct. Yeah, that just happened after 10 months of streaming. So I'm very grateful. I'm grateful that something that was only a result of the quarantine, came to fruition in this beautiful way. So.
Mm-hmm. And like all our heroes, they all start with an origin story. So I guess we'll start there. Where did you grow up? And I guess we'll sort of go into like, what was 15-year-old Jenapher like? What movies, TV shows, books, video games, and music made the most impact on you at such a young age?
Oh my gosh, wonderful. Well, I grew up in an East LA borough called Alhambra, and it's the land that is populated by many Asian American immigrants, as well as a very big and thriving Latin community. Primarily, that's the demographic that I grew up around. And yeah, are we asking what I was a fan of only at age 18, or can I
Well, you can
delve into childhood
yeah,
stuff?
definitely delve into childhood. Whatever made you tick
Okay.
at that young age.
Okay, brilliant. Well, I remember the two foremost pieces of media that left a profound impact on me were the book A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, which is kind of like a fantasy sci-fi YA novel mix. And then the second thing was watching the movie The Matrix, which to this day is still one of my favorite movies of all time. And that one's a straight sci-fi. So yeah, those were my two major influences. I was a very prolific reader when I was a child. I would borrow anything from 15 to 20 books as a kid, and I would read extremely fast. And I was known for being kind of nerdy and kind of an outcast.
Wow.
And I faced some bullying when I was a child, and I found a lot of refuge in my imagination and books and games when I was finally allowed to have a Game Boy. And yeah, my first Game Boy was at 9 years old. I played Pokemon Gold, and I realized I was a geek when I started obsessing over data, like the whole min-maxing thing and trying to get every single Pokemon and making sure that I'm doing every mission correctly. The time where it really solidified for me was at the end of playing Pokemon Gold, where you're supposed to face off against Red, right? Who is the ultimate champion. You're supposed to beat him, and then you become the Pokemon Master. Well, I beat him on the first try. I was very, very proud about this fact. I used a Drowsy to give his Snorlax nightmares. It was brilliant. It was great. I walked out of that fight with very low health, and another trainer walks up to me, and I freaked out thinking, oh God, I don't have any potions left. I'm just going to die. So then I do what I usually do when I don't get a desired outcome. I switch off my Game Boy without saving the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so pissed at myself that I rage quit. It was at that moment I realized I'm too deep into this now. I am definitely a geek.
That's awesome. Were there any of the TV shows other TV besides movies that made an impression on you?
For sure. I watched a lot of Pokemon. I did watch a lot of Sailor Moon as well. Um, Digimon was also a thing. I mostly watched national television though, because my parents didn't have cable. They're Chinese immigrants, so
Mhm.
like they didn't believe in spending extra money on additional television when there were already free channels of television, Jennifer. But yeah.
So I guess we can fast forward a little bit and talk to me about your creative journey. I think you went to Cal Arts, right?
Correct, yeah. So I actually went to UC Riverside first for undergrad, and I studied theater and English there, and then went to Cal Arts. So there's a bit of a trajectory here. As I was saying before, I was a very imaginative child. Like, I still keenly recall just going on long car rides, to wherever my parents were driving, and I would enact these scenes in my head of like, what would happen if somebody yelled at me, but then I didn't want to share this with them. And then I would like play it like a scene in my mind as though I were thinking about an acting scene.
Hmm.
And it would like bring tears to my eyes, or I would like be filled with that emotion of whatever my imagined scene was. And as an only child, I guess like it was a form of entertaining myself. I had this very weird, wild, and wonderful imagination. I had stuffed animals that I each assigned a personality. They each had a personality, and I did their voice for them like a VO actor. And they would talk to each other, and they would all sing to each other. It was this whole thing. I sound insane, but this was me as a child. And then it was right around sixth grade that this really lovely teacher who I'll always remember. Her name is Miss Leal, or Mrs. Leal, I should say. And she encouraged us to do basically a creative project of any sort based on the book that we were reading, The Secret Garden. And I chose to do a play. I don't know why. I think in fourth grade, we had gone to watch The Legend of Sleepy Hollow at some theater somewhere. And I just remember like crying because it was beautiful. Because the imposed live fiction of theater was just so profound to me. And I couldn't believe that anybody actually did this in real life.
Hmm.
It was just so wonderful. So then I just thought, okay, well, I'm going to do a play. And so I wrote a parody show based on The Secret Garden where Mary Lennox is just an extreme brat who tries to show off her jump rope skills. And Mrs. Maddox is this extreme, conniving, like witch woman. And I cast myself as Mrs. Maddox because I just wanted to play this conniving character. And we put it on for the class, and the teacher absolutely loved it. Everybody was just like aghast at how entertaining it was. And the teacher just went immediately to the phone and went like, I want all the sixth grade classes out here, and we're going to perform it outside and everyone's going to watch it. So then all three sixth grade classes went outside and we performed it again for them. And then she made another phone call, and then the principal and vice principal came in to watch us perform it for the third time, just as a private audience. And one of the fellow teachers, not the one in my immediate class, but a fellow sixth grade teacher, Mrs. Huang, came over and pulled me aside and went like, you know, I really believed the anger behind your eyes, like in that character. I think you might have a gift, like you could be an actor. And that was the first time somebody had told me anything like that, because I had always been told by my parents that entertainment is like kind of like a field to be not held in high esteem, to put it mildly. you know but it was definitely a spark to the heart, and I had been unable to put that thought aside since. So then of course I pursued various plays while I was in high school. I did speech and debate and performed a lot of characters there. And in college, I performed in a number of theater shows and ended up being a theater producer for the student-led theater group called the Golden Mean Players. And so I put on a lot of theatrical events. And then when I got into CalArts, that was a turning point for me because I assumed that even though that this was my love, acting was my love, I had to do something practical with my life. You know, it's the whole Asian parent mentality bleeding into me.
Hmm.
So I deeply believed that I was going to be an English professor, which is why I applied for my MA PhD in English. I did not get into those schools because halfway through writing my 20-page thesis, I realized A, the thesis was about theater, and B, I saw my life as if I had already lived it. This endless brigade of weekly essays that I had to write. And I was like, I cannot live this life. I feel like I would not survive. Like a part of me would just die and I will never get that back.
Hmm.
So I was like, well, what else can I do? And I realized, well, now is as good a time as any to just take a shot for it. So I auditioned for various acting schools around the region and I got into Cal Arts like 4 days before the deadline. And that has been a marvelous journey. CalArts really unlocked something in me and has given me greater access to my own creativity,
Hmm.
as well as access to a network which has been since blossoming. I feel like it's such a domino effect. People talk about networking, but networking is not the sleazy, like pretentious thing that the industry often makes it out to be. It's actually just a series of unfolding friendships and collaborations that build reputation and trust. And I've been lucky enough to engage in that.
I'm curious, have your parents sort of come around at least a little bit in accepting
Yeah.
your chosen profession?
Absolutely. They have come around, especially after CalArts. I think they rested on the laurel of, well, at least it's a master's degree, so you know, like that's something to be proud of. But also, like, them seeing me in several regional theater productions, I think established the fact that, okay, I think she has some measure of talent here. It's not just a pipe dream. She seems serious about this, you know. And the fact that I've been financially able to just, you know, I don't know, float along and kind of do my thing and not let them worry is is further reassurance that, look, I'm not a starving artist. I'm really just making my own way and this is the best way to make me happy. So
Hmm. Now, I'm also curious about um, how you got your sort of creative spark at a young age. I assume are you an only child?
I am. Yeah, I was saying that I'm an only child and therefore I didn't have many playmates and I was also heavily bullied when I was a child. I had
Mm.
very few friends. So I mostly dove into books and my
Hmm.
imagination.
So I'm sure that's
And
sort of
yeah.
magnified because of those circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I would definitely escape into my mind. I would write like different little stories. I started writing poetry when I was in 5th grade. I remember my first poem was called What a Tangled Web We Weave. And it was about this elderly man riding a bicycle down the street, but then these like really mean teenagers throw like twigs in his path because they wanted to bully him and he falls. And I'm just talking about like the injustice of immorality. I thought it was really deep, but I don't know. I don't know if it actually was.
It sounds deep.
Yeah. I hope so. I don't know. If I picked it up again in a notebook somewhere, I probably would be flipping out and face palming. So,
Yeah, I mean, bullying is such a topic that resonates with me as well because
mm.
I mean, I growing up, I was either bullied or tried to be bullied, but I
Oh,
kind of just
mm.
stood my ground most of the time, and it's kind of funny
Yeah.
because in elementary school I was bullied by these group of guys, but in high school
Mm.
it's like sort of became friends almost. So
Oh,
it's weird how things work out,
wow.
you know. And
Yeah.
I remember this one situation where we were out in the soccer field or the baseball
Mm-hmm.
diamond just playing, and
Mm-hmm.
something happened and these bullies started acting up again, and we almost came to blows. Like I I
Whoa.
I I, I, I was trying to protect a friend of mine from being bullied, and I
Mm-hmm.
almost I swear I felt like I wanted to take the bat and swing it at that bully.
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, some of the other students went to go find my teacher,
Yeah.
and he was totally surprised by my, I guess, my attitude and my stance on
Yeah.
against those bullies, because I was like the good-hearted natured, good-hearted and even
Right.
keeled kid who,
But you were pushed to that
yeah,
extent,
because
you know?
I hated seeing my friends being bullied, um,
Absolutely.
so much, and
Wow.
even to this day, it still resonates with me.
No, absolutely. I think it leaves a profound impact on children, you know, what the social dynamics are when you grow up and interact with other kids. You know, your story reminds me of several other stories I've heard from guy friends who have endured the same thing. And I wonder if there's this like thing, I don't know, there might be something gendered about it, but like, you know, guys have maybe an easier time physically standing up for themselves or like reaching a point where they can like, you know, reach a point of retaliation. But I feel like that was a challenge for me as a girl, because it wasn't like I could physically intimidate anybody in stopping the bullying. You
Right,
know,
right.
like I felt as though I was conditioned to placate them and to assume that I was wrong and that I needed to change something about myself,
Mhm.
even though the bar was set higher and higher and higher, you know? And it took many years for me to realize that that is basically an abusive relationship. That is basically the the case model for that, you know. It took a while for me to like separate my empathy and compassion for people who were trying to take advantage of me and empathy and compassion that's healthy.
Definitely, I think people can use more empathy and compassion, especially now, during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Speaking of the pandemic, how has it affected you professionally and personally?
um Interestingly enough, and I say this knowing that I have this type of privilege going for me, I was working like a dead end money job in 2019 leading up to the pandemic. So I had some money saved up. And that was key and crucial to me being able to survive this pandemic financially during this time. And I've been unemployed because at the start of the pandemic and in 2020, I was playing the lead in this really wonderful play called Man of God by Anna Munch at the Geffen Playhouse, which is a huge deal for folks in the LA theater scene. The Geffen Playhouse is very prestigious and has housed many masterful works over the years. And I was very lucky to perform there. We performed 9 previews, and then our show got canceled the day before opening
Oh my
night,
gosh.
and that was so tragic. And I it was heart-wrenching, but at the same time it gave me an immediate look into how dire the situation was, perhaps before some other people really grasped how severe the situation was.
Mhm.
So as a result of that, I was able to apply for unemployment at the start of that, and that, in addition to my, you know, bit of savings, I was able to like muscle through to today. And so then, you know, being quarantined and on unemployment during this time, I have found uh, direction in other things. I've set up a VO booth in my closet and really made for myself a commercial VO reel and decided to, you know, pursue representation and to, you know, put out samples in the universe and submit myself. I submitted myself for everything. I did a couple of short projects that were on COVID safe sets, and we were all tested beforehand. I got a commercial agent, which has been lovely. I started Twitch streaming immediately after becoming unemployed, which has been honestly the hugest source of joy for me during this time. And my joy is returning back to me, luckily, because of course, that time in 2020 was so uncertain and dire for so many people. And it still is, because a lot of people are still losing family members, friends, you know, to this thing. And we all just want to be done with it, you know, even though it's been such a long process. So my greatest joy has definitely been Twitch, because I've been able to be in touch and also perform in a way, even though it's just my personality, like just being able to be present for people live. That's what I aim to capture in theater. And that's something that Twitch emulates, and it brings me a lot of joy when folks tell me that I make them happy or that I'm something that they're looking forward to, that the funny things that I'm doing online are brightening their days in some way.
Yeah, I mean,
That brings me
the
joy.
handful of times I've been on your Twitch stream to see you, perform, it's been fun.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad. I just celebrated my 1K follower party stream last night,
Yeah, that was
which
crazy.
is also lovely. There's definitely something ironic in throwing a digital party alone in your room at night, but it's the nature of
What
everything
was the name of
right
your
now.
Stegosaurus again? Harold or
Yeah,
yeah.
Harold the Stegosaurus. He's still right behind me. He's just chilling. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just bought all these party favors. For people who don't know, I bought an inflatable balloon that's shaped like a stegosaurus. So
Mm-hmm.
that's Harold.
Right. I think a lot of creators that I've been talking to in the last,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, year and a half or so,
Yeah.
they've multiplied their efforts, their creative efforts,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, I mean, like yourself, you've done that as well. I
Yeah.
mean, especially with Borrowed Light, the movie that you
Yeah.
wrote. Congratulations once again, and getting that fully funded. That was pretty quick. That happened in less than a week,
It
I think,
was,
right?
oh my God. Yeah, that was insane. So, yes. So, Borrowed Light is a short film script. I should take this back. So, my director, Madison Kennedy, is. Is wonderful, first and foremost. But she was the director of a short film that I was on end of last year, So we met during that time. And then she discovered that I do writing. And though I haven't written a screenplay in a couple of years, she was like, I want you to be able to write a film and I want us to make a film together. And I was like, well, this is a wonderful opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
And so I started brainstorming and I realized that not a lot of the plays or the film scripts that I have written pertain to my actual personal life. I often write about fictional characters or fictional scenarios or imaginary scenarios, but I have never largely written about myself. And I realized that being an Asian American woman, being a person who is affected by mental illness and has the history that I have, it would be it would be an unfair thing. Oh my god, that was so ineloquent. But like it would be unfair for me to not share that or to at least um exhibit that in media so that people can identify with it, because I'm sure there are so many others out there who identify with this exact same story.
Mm-hmm.
So I started writing Borrowed Light, and it is very deeply based on my own experiences with having bipolar disorder and my experiences spanning between like high school and college. It's a collection of like certain events that happened during that time, as well as a real scenario that happened between me and my friend when she called me when she was having a mental emergency.
Mm-hmm.
So it deals with very heavy subjects, and we filmed a promo and put it on the Seed and Spark, and we were like, okay, well, let's bring it out to the heavy hitters. And I had a list of people I knew I'm gonna contact, and what's lovely about Seed and Spark is that once you reach 80% of your goal, you can keep all of it and you could just keep, raising money from there. We actually ended up reaching the 80% and getting greenlit after 2 days. And then we got fully funded after like 4 or 5 days,
Yeah, I remember
which is
that was
insane.
fast.
It was really fast. And now we're trying to reach our stretch goal of 15K, so an added 5,000 on top of the 10K that we originally funded, so that we can, improve our equipment and be able to pay everybody who's on set. So it's been a lovely journey thus far. We do have until the 14th, as you said, for the campaign. So it the biggest thing that has left an impact on me during this entire campaign process is the amount of people who have reached out to me saying, my friend has bipolar. I have bipolar. I suffer from depression. My mother suffers from anxiety. I lost a friend to depression. I lost my sister to depression. Like the amount of people who have reached out to me and told me their story during this time
Yeah.
is just so moving, because I guess I didn't even realize the scope of what this story would do until people started pouring through the cracks. Folks that I hadn't even met before have given large donations to the project because it resonated with them so much. And I'm just so grateful for that. And I hope to do it justice. Honestly, I hope we do it justice because it means so much.
Well, yeah, I'm so looking forward to seeing the finished product. And I think what they say holds true. Write what you know, and I think that was a good move on
Mm.
your part.
Well, I'm glad. It took a lot for me to get to this place here at my age to be able to talk about things that have happened like 10 years ago.
Hmm.
You know, like it took that long for me to even reach a point of awareness of like, oh, that was what that was. You know, it seems almost foolish and simple looking back now of just like, oh, yeah, that's what happened. But when you're in the middle of it, like the tornado feels like your world,
Hmm.
like you have a different sense of gravity when you go through something like that. It literally alters your perception. So, I consider myself lucky that I'm stable on medication for the past like 7 years.
Hmm.
I have a really good support system. I regularly go to therapy. I know how to self soothe. These are all, gifts that I definitely believe that not everybody has. And so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that was sort of like my next question was to ask about how you cope and like
Mhm.
how what do you do to mitigate when it sort of hits you in the face.
Right, right. I mean, it's largely reduced by medication and also putting myself in a better position in life.
Hmm.
Choosing acting was also like one of the first forays into unlocking that knot that I had in my chest. I think, following your truest path to joy is also key in establishing your mental health overall. So it's like, kind of like, okay, well, I was given this kind of like like this mediocre plant to grow, for example, but I can still change the soil. I can still work on the soil to make it so that, my plant or my mental health grows in such a way that it is receiving the best it can possibly have. And, we adjust as we go. I am of the opinion that, like, psychology at large or like mental health is often more keen on diagnosing and then treating as a disease rather than seeing the person as a holistic human being who might have needs that extend far beyond just medication, um, or an imbalance,
Hmm.
Like often, if you look at folks who suffer from mental illness, they have a family history or they have PTSD or, a confluence of different things, honestly. Like, I don't think a human being is just their illness. And I don't think a human being can be like figured out so easily. It's everybody's on their different journey. And sometimes what looks like bipolar in a person is not going to be the same set of symptoms in another person. You know, it's just one way to label and understand something, but even then, like the realm of mental health is so nebulous and mysterious.
Hmm.
Like, can I really say that I have bipolar? I don't know, but that was what was told to me, and that was what my behavior reflected at the time. you know um However, I know that, like, I'm speaking broadly. I can't speak to the specifics of anybody else's experience,
Sure.
but I'm just saying that there's such a wealth and spectrum of experience that I want to see people as whole beings first before I see them as like, oh, I suffer from X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
One of the big pet peeves that I have is when people stigmatize. I mean, society at large stigmatizes mental health and mental illness, I should say. Um, but there is definitely like a falling of the face that happens when I reveal to somebody that I've been diagnosed with bipolar. They're like, "Oh, like you're one of those people. Like,
Mm.
what does that mean?
Mhm.
Are you just happy a lot, and then are you like really sad a lot? you know, and that's an oversimplification, but also it comes from fear and lack of understanding. You know, and often, and this is why I wanted to write Borrowed Light as well, because I feel like often our mental health system or our healthcare system fails to accurately identify and support and help people who are slipping until it's too late, or until it reaches a level of emergency where it cannot be ignored. um, and that's exactly what happened with me. I definitely reached a point where if I had stepped one more toe out of the line, I would not be here today, you know?
Yeah.
But being able to be pulled back to this side is something that I'm grateful for every day. And I want to be able to show that in everything that I do. And I hope that I can help others in a similar way.
I guess a brief synopsis of the story goes like this:
Mm.
Molly and, is it Desi or Desi?
Desi, yeah, Desi.
Mo-
She's Filipino.
okay. Molly and Desi are headed their separate ways for the first time. Desi finds a friend and fellow classmate and musician Trisha.
Mhm,
Molly, on the other hand, feels tethered to the spiraling impulsivity and isolation that stems from her untreated bipolar disorder. The
mhm,
situation comes to a head when Desi receives a distressing call from Molly.
mhm.
So, which one are you?
I'm gonna be playing Molly,
Mhm.
and Kaitlyn Fae is gonna be playing Desi.
Right. Which I was going to ask about after. That was my follow up question about Caitlin, because not only is
Mhm.
she acting, but she's also providing music with her
Yes.
collaborator. I guess they're called
Mhm.
The Rue Band, or how do you
They're called Rue.
Rue? Okay,
Yeah, and their tag is Rue the Band.
okay,
So yeah, so she and Rachel Cuilan have this band called Rue, and they're gracious enough that they're willing to write some of the music for the film, because the film does involve some music, which is going to be lovely. They already are in the works, so I can't wait for you to hear some of that. A bit of one of the songs that they wrote is already featured in the promo video on our Seed and Spark page,
nice.
and it's called Highway Trinket, and it's already really great. So,
Yeah, and we had Caitlin Faye on the show back in
Mhm.
episode 66 when we talked about her film Fruit Fly. So
Oh, that's right, that's right. Yeah, I worked behind the scenes on Fruit Fly. That was a fun one.
awesome. Speaking of Caitlin, you also have another
Mhm.
project you're sort of collaborating with together,
Mhm.
Quinto Comics. Do you want to tell me a little bit about
Oh,
that?
yeah. That thing, that's right. Yeah, so, me and Caitlin are collaborators on, this graphic novel series. I don't know if we can release the name yet, but it is based on Filipino mythology, and it's an urban fantasy that is geared towards a YA audience. It's gonna feature a teen lead, and we're making great headway in our first issue, or first and second issue, I should say, and hoping to, fully put this out and publish it. Our producer, Cecilia Lim, is very wonderful, and the company is called Cuento Comics. And Cuento, of course, means story in Tagalog. So yeah. Primarily, my job is to just assist Caitlin with her writing process. She is the head writer, and I give uh, helpful opinions when available.
You're the soundboard.
Yeah, I am her sounding board. I also give opinions on art and help her brainstorm different ideas as well. So yeah,
Yeah, I think that's really important because I talk to a lot of indie comic book creators, and they have their inner circle that they do bounce off ideas. With
yeah.
a lot of when it comes to art, to ideas, to
Hmm.
just the story. So I think that that is really helpful to have.
It is. It is helpful to have, and you know, I'm just here for her as a friend and as an artist collaborator, and I feel like I know the story second best after her, so it aids in the process of being able to um give critique or thoughts when needed.
And besides Quento comics, you also collaborate on the Pangeekery podcast on Twitch, which I was
Yeah.
lucky enough to be a guest on last
Mhm.
season. So for our audience, could you sort of tell them about Pangeekery?
Of course. Yeah. So Pangeekery started in 2019, and I was brought on as the very final member. I know Rodney Cahuto, who is the producer, was looking for a and fourth podcast host and second female podcast host, and Kaitlyn happened to be the first female podcast host on the group, and she recommended me because we had just become great friends after working together in this solo show that she directed me in 2018. So she just dropped it on me saying like, oh, there's going to be this geek podcast and they're looking for another female podcast host, and I'm already hanging on to every word going like, please, 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 and I just petitioned her like, you need to talk to this Rodney about me. You have to tell him that I'm like dying to do this. This is the thing that I've wanted to do for such a long time. I've always wanted to be like a podcast host or be a critic in some way. And I had like tears in my eyes, and she was like, whoa, okay, fine. Yes, I'll talk to him. Yeah. And met up with Rodney, and I pulled out all my heavy hitting geek interest things. And, the rest is history. We've been working together ever since. Like, we used to be a live recorded podcast that was recorded, in our makeshift studio. But of course, the pandemic has changed everything. So now we're primarily a Zoom Twitch thing, which is fine. Hopefully we'll reach a level of liveness soon in some form of safe future. But yeah, it's been a really rewarding number of years, and we all wear many different hats. Back when we were live, I did a lot more like artwork for them, like live set design and things like that. But now that we've gone digital, our roles have kind of changed. And I mean, COVID changes everything, but
Definitely.
you know, it's here I am. Here we are. We still meet every Monday night. We go live on Twitch. Now our Pangeekery podcast has become the flagship podcast for a podcast network that is all geek centric. So the network is now called the Geekish Network, and you can find us on twitch.tv/geekish network. And Pangeekery is one of those, and it happens on Monday night.
Yeah, there's a whole slew of different kinds of shows on there.
Yeah, yeah, a whole slew of different kinds of shows. Our other podcast hosts on Pangeekery, like Earl Balon, who's a VO actor, and like Andy Lowe, both of them are on separate podcasts within that network as well. So it's worth checking out. There's different podcasts covering different facets of geek interest for everyone.
Yeah, I recommend our Hall H show listeners to go check it out. There's definitely, I'm sure there's a show that will resonate with them, whether you're a Star Wars fan,
Hmm.
technology, even the
Exactly.
little like shows that we grew up with. I think that's one of the subjects that Earl's show talks about, right?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think,
Yeah,
oh yeah, and also,
Earl is on Nerdtastic,
yeah,
and Andy is also on Pod Squadron, which is specifically Star Wars.
that's right. It also has my friend Tracy Hot Nerd Girl on there as well.
That's right. Yeah, I know Tracy from another friend group, so it's just interesting how worlds collide.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And also, I think Earl's other show is sort of on hiatus. The show that he
Hmm.
does with Arnold. Um,
Oh,
was
Pots and
Yeah,
Pangeekery. Yes. It's a geek cooking show that features a lot of geek inspired recipes. And Arnold is already like a food food creator.
Yeah.
And Earl also is very proficient at cooking, and they're really great friends. So like a lot of great chemistry and a lot of like wonderful recipes come out from that.
Yeah,
And
it's
I'm sure after they hiatus, they'll do it
yeah,
again.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm sort of a childhood friend of Arnold's. We sort of, yeah, grew up around the
Really?
same circles.
Oh
So like our
wow.
family would go up to LA and then hang out with like a group that we were part of, that his family was a part of too. So
Wow, small
so like
world.
him and Jonathan Wandog,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know those guys.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
um,
I feel very lucky to be a part of this community. Honestly, the whole floodgates opened when I met Kaitlyn, honestly. And that I have met more Filipinos in my life as a result of knowing Kaitlyn Fae, but now, I wouldn't have it any other way,
it's like
honestly.
it's like I know you, but I don't really know you because we don't hang out. We haven't hung out yet. So
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, this pandemic changes everything, but like now we know that we have these connections, and now we know, like, I'm cool with you, you're cool with me, like
all
we can
right.
totally hang out.
I guess we'll take a little break and do a thunder round, which is our sort of uh, random round of questions.
Sounds good.
Cool. The first question is describe yourself using a color.
Ooh. I think I'm gonna say fuchsia?
Fuchsia. I like that.
I've never said that before. I usually say red, but I just wanted something that like had some mix to it. Okay.
Why are you feeling fuchsia right now?
um because I feel bright and bold, but not quite categorized. Like, I don't know, like it's just feisty and vivacious in this warm way. It reminds you of like, I don't know, like bougainvillea flowers or
Nice.
something.
I like
Yeah.
it. um, why did you feel compelled to write your recent poem, "The New Pandemic"?
Yeah. So I wrote the new pandemic in response to the the shooting in Atlanta, where 8 people died from that shooting, and 6 of them were Asian American women. And I felt a profound grief and sadness, as did a lot of members of the Asian American community as a result of that, since, of course, like the darker side of the pandemic and the terminology used to describe the pandemic has been, um, you know, building up this pent up hatred for Asian faces and Asian bodies at this time, which is very dangerous. And it just speaks to the power of dangerous rhetoric. Um, so I wrote that poem because I was unable to really process the amount of grief and numbness that I was feeling from that event, and I couldn't help but think about how my position as an Asian American woman in this world is unique in that uh, both racism and sexism are nearly indistinguishable from each other when they are directed towards somebody like me.
Hmm.
You know, every instance that I have endured some form of racism in my life has also been tinged and charged with sexual predatory intent. Um, so, speaking very plainly to what crime occurred in Atlanta, I think it's fair to say that given the evidence that we have, that they were both Asian massage parlors and Asian women
Right.
who were primarily killed, it is a hate crime,
Hmm.
and it speaks volumes as to how dangerous, hateful rhetoric is, and how dangerous xenophobia is. So then I
Would
wrote.
you mind
Sorry,
reading
go
it?
ahead. Oh, ooh. I mean, sure. I think it would be very beneficial if I read it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try not to be emotional as I read it. But sure, let's do that. I'm gonna bring it up right now.
I think it's a powerful piece of work. So I would love if you would, if you're comfortable enough to read it.
I'd be honored. Thank you so much for asking that. All right. The new pandemic. America, I am asking nicely, since my Chinese parents taught me never to complain. Somewhere in this numb and quiet grief is rage, but I have never shown it. I have always put my head down, thinking I'll be safe if I comply. They barely see us when we die. 6 of me were killed that night, and while we've never met, I know them. Faces, bodies, just like mine, are looked at with both lust and blame. It's not a hate crime, it's a sex crime. But it's no mistake that searching Asian nets you porn, and girls like me have known that all our lives. They barely see us when we die. Whose story will you honor when the words they call us aren't just slurs, but bookends to the violence? What will you say when we get killed for what we did not cause? Was I not born on this same soil, spent this same year in quarantine? Am I not as American as he who pulled the trigger? But if I need to say goodbye, just let me have the time. They barely see us when we die. They barely see us when we die.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thanks. I mean, thanks for letting me say those words. I have never spoken them aloud, so that's an interesting poetic thing, I guess, to marvel at in itself. Um, I was trying to convey like the sense of pride and saving face and silence and courtesy that is imposed onto the model minority, and
Hmm.
how like we often don't complain and we often don't speak out and we don't want to rock the boat, or that's how our parents taught us to behave because that's how we as Asian Americans have survived over the years, by floating in this nebulous space of the in between. But I think it's reaching a point where, I mean, it was always deadly, but it's especially deadly now, And I'm just so glad. It is both jarring and reassuring to see that Asian Americans are speaking out now, you know, about anti-Asian violence. And I think all BIPOC solidarity, all hands on deck. We all need each other to speak out against racism in this country.
Definitely,
So,
I agree.
and I'm lucky enough that, I posted that poem and so many of my friends shared it. And then I decided to, send it in for consideration on the Facebook group called Pantsuit Nation Supermajority. And it's where a lot of people who read like, politics go on.
Hmm.
And it went viral there, which is very lovely. It like currently it has about like 4,000 hits
Wow.
and hundreds of shares, which is, more of an audience than I ever have for any of the poems that I have written over the years. But I mean, I guess it speaks to the relevance of the message at this current moment. And it gives me faith knowing that so many people have resonated with it. I just hope that these people who were emotionally moved by it in some ways will carry on that fervor to the next time that they are called to act in solidarity.
I hope
That's my
so.
hope.
Yeah. Um, I guess my next question is, if you were on WandaVision, what kind of character do you think Wanda would cast you as in that crazy town of hers?
Oh my goodness. Oh my. Oh. Oh. I have no idea. This is a very multi-layered question because like I definitely disagree with her imprisoning all those people, and it would be like it's not the problem is that it wouldn't be my choice,
Right. Uh
right?
huh.
Like she would create a character for me regardless of what my choice is, because I have no mental agency in the matter of her controlling my body, which is very scary. It's like some body snatcher shit. But uh I don't know. I'm the the realist part of me, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, But like in all those shows that were like vintagey in the past, Asian representation was not a thing. And I think if I were featured, I would probably be cast in this really weird light until about like maybe the 80s or 90s. And then I'd be like, the best friend, or like, oh, the kooky Asian girl or whatever,
Right.
Um, something like that would happen just because that has been the history of entertainment at large. So I don't mean to like, you know, I don't mean to like shoot down the question. I'm just saying, like, realistically, I guess I would be cast as that.
Got it.
Maybe I can be the gym friend. Maybe I can be like the 80s dancer gym friend.
Well, you do like dancing.
Yeah, that's right.
um, Once we get past the pandemic and it's safe to travel, what
Mhm.
are some places that you'd like to visit?
Oh man. If I had the money to visit, you mean?
Right.
I would love to go to Tokyo. I would love to go to Paris. I would love to go to Prague. There's so many places in the world that I would love to travel. But most of all, I think most pressing in my heart is I want to travel to East West Players, and I want to be able to convene there with my friends the way I've always hung out with them. East West Players, the theater, has been my home. They're they're a collection of theater professionals who produce many different plays, and they've been around for over 55 years. And recently, they've been standing up for injustice in the Asian American community as far as representation goes in the realm of theater due to some mishaps that happened during the Ovation Awards. And that led to an entire movement of many different theaters, over like 24, I believe, have left the LA Stage Alliance
Mhm.
as a result of that. So I'm really proud of them for just being on the forefront of demanding solidarity and
I
change.
think I read a
Um,
little bit about what you posted, and
yeah.
they, I guess, didn't get co-production credit, and
Yeah.
one of the people that was nominated,
Mhm.
they mispronounced her name, or they also used the wrong picture, I believe.
Correct. Yeah. So Julie Lee, who's a fantastic actor, she was nominated for her work in Hannah and the Dread Gazebo, um, and her name was mispronounced during the award ceremony. And a picture of her fellow castmate, who is also an Asian American woman, was shown instead of
Mm.
hers. In addition to that, um, the co-productions that East West Players had this year, one at the Pasadena Playhouse and one at the Fountain, both were credited to those theaters, primarily larger, richer, whiter institutions. And East West Players was left out as a name because by the rules, by the standards of the LA Stage Alliance, you can only have one name of a theater on the line. And East West Players has spoken out about this because, for one, it's a really tone deaf, especially during this time when Asian Americans are experiencing violence, to just continue furthering that myth that we all look the same or that our names can't be pronounced or yada yada. It's just a tired narrative.
Yeah.
And for another, for a lot of theaters of color, or for, you know, more marginalized populations that are also trying to make art, access to resources and like access to reputation is like are things that are very precious and not afforded to everyone. So to not be acknowledged as co-producers in those productions is a form of disrespect and a form of erasure. And I'm just glad that they spoke out against all of that, and folks are showing solidarity, and LASA has responded saying that they want to reform quite a number of things. So we're in flux right now. We're seeing where the future of LA theater will go. Um, but it's a start.
Yeah, definitely a start. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Um, if you had the ability to time travel, who is someone that you would want to have a conversation with?
Vincent Van Gogh.
Why?
I just
Why?
Oh god, I can't even talk about Vincent without crying. I don't know why, but I guess like ever since I was little, even before I knew about his story, like I've just always been so moved by his work. Like viewing his work does something profound to me. in the same way that like if you hear a song, a certain tone or a certain beat can like elicit almost like a memory within you, but
Hmm.
you can't quite place like where the memory is from except that you recognize it. And it's like one of those things for me with Vincent, you know. I'm like on a first name basis with him. Wow.
I
Anyway, so it's the same way for me with his work.
guess that's the beauty
um
of the impressionist movement.
it is, and he is, you know, he was definitely alone in his genre at the time, um, which was very daring and very bold, but also so vulnerable. You know, like he was never anything other than himself, even though being himself and having his unique work led nowhere in his lifetime. He did not get to see any of the success and fame and universal praise that he gets today in his lifetime. And he died by suicide, tragically. And it was heavily speculated that he also had bipolar disorder.
Hmm.
And, you know, of course, at the time, there were much fewer resources for dealing with mental health. And his brother was perhaps his sole benefactor and patron and support system in some ways, but you know, there's only so much that you can do. And yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I guess like I'm not trying to like sensationalize his tragedy, but in some ways, like I can feel or sense his mental state, and I empathize with that every time I look at his work.
Hmm.
And I've always wanted to, you know, I don't know. There's a really beautiful Doctor Who episode. I'm not even a fan of Doctor Who, but there's a beautiful Doctor Who episode that features Vincent Van Gogh, and it's so moving because Matt Smith's character for the Doctor takes Vincent from his time and brings him into modern era and brings him to a museum that features all of his work. And he asks the museum curator to basically describe in one area of the room like what you think Vincent van Gogh left in his legacy. And this museum curator just like talks at length about how Vincent van Gogh is perhaps one of the greatest artists of all time, and Vincent is just in the corner like crying. It is the most moving thing. I cry every time I see it.
I'll have to watch that.
um it's so beautiful. But yeah, I think I would want to meet him. I I don't know. Again, this is my sci-fi brain thinking like, oh, would I change the course of events if I spoke to somebody in the past?
Uh,
Like, would it freak them out? Would it be out of time? Would it change the future? But I would definitely, at least in some ways, offer like a compliment or to buy a piece of his art. Because I know he never really sold any of his paintings. No one wanted them.
hmm.
I think I would try to buy one of his paintings.
Nice. Which one?
Maybe Starry Night.
Yeah,
You don't
that's a
know.
good one. I like that one.
Or the sunflowers. I love sunflowers as well.
Yeah, I think the sunflowers, his work on the sunflowers was
Mhm.
influential in uh, Samurai Champloo.
Oh, really? Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. I haven't even watched that, but I know that so many people, you know, love Samurai Shampoo. So,
yeah, I love it too. um, in terms of movies, TV shows, video games, and or
Mhm.
books, what has been your comfort food during this pandemic?
Definitely video games. You know, a strange thing happened to me. I think it's because I majored in English in college, but college and its really regimented like grind of education kind of burnt the love of reading from me, which is very unfortunate. I hope at some point I'll be able to redevelop my love for reading, but as of right now I have been unable to truly read for years. It's very sad. But I am still very engrossed in video games. I've been playing so many titles during quarantine, and you know, I'm a very prolific variety gamer, you know, so I'll pick up various things. Mostly I play them for story. So, you know, during this time, Cyberpunk was a really excellent story. Um, Last of Us Part 2 was really excellent. I love Hades. I think that was really brilliant. Um, Currently I am watching the sci-fi show Expanse.
Mm,
Well, now Amazon show,
right.
but I'm loving The
Me
Expanse
too. I love that
thus
show.
far. I haven't caught up yet. I'm at season 4, so I'm one season away from catching up to the current season, but it's just so phenomenal. I am blown away by how underrated it is. I feel like it should have universal acclaim, but hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully. Come on, Jeff Bezos, renew it. um, yeah. I have a lot of friends who love The Expanse as well.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you something about the current season, but I'll hold that for maybe another show.
Ooh. Yeah,
Do you have a
yeah.
favorite character right now?
Oh man, I mean, I really identify with Naomi
Uh
Nagata.
huh.
I feel like my my personality is very similar to hers. That like Katniss Everdeen, like fight for the underdog, but like do do the bold and right thing kind of gal, but also show compassion and empathy, that sort of thing. I'm really down with that. I also really love Drummer.
Mm,
She's just so badass.
right.
Love her. And Holden's fantastic as well. I mean, he really just like anchors the whole show. So they really cast the show very
They
well.
did. Yeah.
Like it's so well cast. It's really gripping storytelling. I'm just going to plug it for those who are, listening to this who haven't seen The Expanse yet. Please watch The Expanse. It is some quality sci-fi, quality television, and it speaks to morality. It speaks to, you know, international politics, and what does it mean when we bring like human error and like human fallibility, but also like human triumph into space. Like what is what does human behavior look like hundreds of years from now when we are dealing with the same type of issues we've seen on Earth?
Right.
It's really lovely.
It's definitely a morality tale.
Yep. All the stories that I love the best, including video games, especially video games, are morality tales.
Yeah. Wait, you were a voice for a Niantic game, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for Ingress, I play Dr. Victoria Curies in Ingress. I'm one of the researchers for, you know, the Niantic 13. And that was really fun. I enjoyed that very much. I'm also in the works of voicing a VR game. I don't want to say too much yet
Hmm.
because um it's still in the works. So I
Nice.
don't want to like say what that is, but I've been trying my hand at VO here and there, and I've done some animations, some, little things here and there.
Cool. Well, next time we talk, hopefully we'll have an update on that.
Yeah, yeah.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh man, I sing Highway to Hell by AC/DC in a very like growly Janis Joplin type way.
Oh wow.
I also sing Gold Lion by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, but it's only if they have it. Some places don't have it if it's older. I also like singing 2 a.m. by Anna Nalick.
Cool. Why do you love what you do? What drives you to create?
Oh man. Like I know acting is my first and primary love, but I think like the drive to create comes from empathy and it comes from this addiction to profundity. That sounds super pretentious, but I am addicted to the profound. Like I want life to have profound meaning. I want the work we do to matter. I want like, the relationships that we have with people and the connections that we share to be meaningful and impactful. I want to be able to change people's lives for the better. Like there's just so many things. There's so many things. Those are just words to describe like this like pulsing glowing feeling inside of me that like makes me march on. Like it's hard to describe, but it's more of a feeling than it is an intellectual thing.
Hmm.
It's not like, honestly, like, if you could cut one of my limbs off, I'll still go on tomorrow. Like if you tell me to like give up acting tomorrow, I'll be like, okay, fine. Well, I'll stick to writing. I'll stick to Twitch viewing. I'll stick to this. If you said like you can't write anymore, I'll be like, okay, well, I'll stick to perform. I'll stick to this. Like it's like this amorphous solid that like I can always take on or do or not do anything, but all of it is fueled by this desire to further humanity,
Hmm.
you know? So that's where that comes from.
Nice. You sort of touched on it here and there throughout our conversation, but maybe there's something else you can add to this. Uh, a lot of creatives that have found success are the ones that seem to have set themselves up to play the long game.
Mhm.
What are some things that you've done to put yourself in the best position for long-term success?
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you said that because I think often in this industry, especially in the Hollywood industry, most people believe the fiction that you have to bank on your youth, that you bank on your looks, that talent sometimes is a luck game, you know?
Hmm.
And like that may be true of the business, that may be true of the industry. However, my drive to create art is overlaps with that intention for business, but is not fully contained within that business. You know what I mean? And that's the reason why I pursued an MFA in acting at Cal Arts, even though I knew that it would put me into my mid 20s when I graduated. You know, um, I am not in it to be a child star. I'm not in it to win my 15 seconds of fame. You know, I'm in here because I want to make my entire life a dedication to art and a dedication to community. And my impact will um, will develop as my reputation builds over a long period of time. You know, like within the Asian American artist community as well. Like I've built a home for myself, and that I find to be more gratifying than anything in the world. I think like finding gratification in the arts is such a precious thing, you know, and we often have to separate it from money or immediate success or like the immediacy of success, you know. Being able to define success for yourself as a process rather than as a set of arbitrary goals is actually going to be life-saving sometimes, because you don't want to, you know, you don't want to box yourself in and set yourself up for unhappiness or failure because you've simply missed a specific goal, or that, you know, after you've attained that specific goal you've lost your direction for where you want to take your artistry,
Right.
you know. So like I definitely want to practice resilience, and I want to be able to say that I'm an artist who has evolved myself over the years, and I have never, like, you know, limited myself in how I view what I want to do, you know, that I'll
Hmm.
see the condition of the world and see how best I can help and operate within it rather than trying to, you know, just hit XYZ and call it good, you
Yeah,
know?
I hear you. I think you said a key word that's really important: resiliency,
Mhm.
um, and being able to pivot in certain
Mhm.
situations. I think is a hallmark of somebody who's set themselves up for success.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I mean, because I started acting and being involved with acting at an earlier age, I saw many of my peers, you know, drop out or like switch gears or switch to other careers, which is absolutely viable. I don't think that there should be any shame in that, you know. If that's really what you want to do, like go for it. But, you know, speaking to those who wanted to do it but like felt like it was not going anywhere, I feel like, you know, you have to find this balance between being able to healthily pursue what you love while also finding a sustainable emotional landscape to float on, so that like you're taking care of yourself as you're doing it, you know? Like only do it if it makes you happy. Only do it if it makes you happy, you know? Take a break, stop or quit if it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah, there's no shame in that.
No shame at all. I agree. Um, and my last question for the Thunder Round is what does the quote, "She is so on fire," mean to you?
Oh, that's a tagline I use on so many different things. Um, it's so funny because I started using this tagline everywhere because I don't know. I consider myself to be a person who is constantly burning. Like, you know, one of those, I forget what it's called, but you know, like in the Greek mythos,
Hmm.
there's like this fire. I think it's like the Vestal Virgin fire or whatever. Like they have to constantly keep it burning. Do you know what I mean? I feel like I am that, but like in a person form. um, but it's also when I was like searching different quotes like that had to do with that because I was like, oh, I love quotes. I love like poetry. I came across this like tiny snippet. I think it's by T.B. LaBerge. I think it's from one of their novels or something like that. But here's the full quote that it comes from. It says, "Does she scare you a little? Good. She should make you fear her love so that when she lets you be a part of it, you won't take it lightly. She should remind you of the power that beauty brings, that storms reside in her veins, and that she still wants you in the middle of it all. Do not take this soul for granted, for she is fierce, and she can take you places that you never thought you could go. But she is still loving in the midst of it all. Like the calm rain after a storm, she can bring life. Learn her and cherish her, respect her and love her, for she is so much more than a pretty face. She is a soul on fire."
I love it. That's a good one.
So that's where that comes from.
Nice.
And I just use it everywhere
Hmm.
because that's what I aspire to. There are times when I definitely feel like the flame is dampened. I mean, I do, as I have said, I have suffered from depression. There are times where like it really does not feel like it describes me at all. But then I am happiest when I can rediscover that flame
Hmm.
and that part of myself and
That's
keep
part
going.
of life.
Hmm.
I guess we'll start closing out the show, but before we do, there's a part of the show called the superhero shoutouts. Is
Okay.
there a person or group of people that has helped you along the way that you'd like to thank? And secondly, is there an artist, writer, or other creative that you'd like our audience to check out?
Ooh, okay. Um, I guess my superhero would be some of my English teachers. So Mrs. Leal, the one I mentioned, who had us do the secret garden project, I'm very grateful for because she was very emotionally intelligent and she allowed herself to be an emotional resource for her students, which is very noble and not every teacher does that. And now I was able to confide in her and she definitely brought out the creativity in me and unlocked my love for acting. And I will also credit Miss Keenan, who is one of my English teachers from high school. She was there for me in a very profound way. I recently reached out to her because of Borrowed Light, but she was one of the very few teachers who, when I was going through mental collapse and I had actually gone to the hospital and come back, she basically wrote me a universal hall pass saying, you can take a break whenever you want. Like if you need to go to the nurse's office, if you need to go take a nap, if you just need to sit down somewhere and not be in class, like just go. And that did so much good for me just to know that I didn't have to be like in class screaming or anything like
Wow,
that. Yeah. So I reached out to her thanking her for that. And she actually gave to my Borrowed Light film campaign,
that's
which is so
incredible.
amazing.
That is
I know it's
awesome.
so incredible. And she remembered me too. So yeah, those are my superheroes. And for artists that I would like to recommend, I mean, if you all don't already know about Kaitlyn Fae, you should know about her.
Yep.
Definitely, my best friend Kaitlyn is just so talented, and she's a great musician. She's a great director and actor and writer. I would heavily say that she is a better writer than I am. Heavily. Um, let's see. I just love so many artists in this community. I can't list all of them.
Well,
It would be way
if
too
you can think of any after our conversation ends, just go ahead and email me, and I'll add it to the blog post as well.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much.
Is there anything that we missed? Are there any other projects that you'd like to promote?
Oh man. Let's see. I do so many things.
I know.
um I guess no projects at this current time. I just wanted to wish like everybody who's listening continued strength and success like during this challenging time, and just know that you're not alone and we're all getting through this together, and there's some light at the end of this tunnel now, what with vaccinations going on. So I hope everybody is hanging in there and finding ways to be creative and grateful during this time.
Awesome. Where are the best places to connect and follow you?
Yeah, my best place would be through email. If you wanted to contact me, I'm at jenapherzheng@gmail.com. Jenapher is spelled really weird though. It's Jenapher, and my last name is Zheng. And you can also go to jenapherzheng.com and check out all my stuff there. All my socials are basically Jenapher Zheng, except for Twitch. On Twitch, I am known as Jen Zany, which is Jenzany. So come hang out. I love being a part of Twitch and seeing new people join my community. So if you're a Hall H fan, please give me a holler. I would love to see you there.
Cool. Let's get her to 10,000 followers.
Thank you.
Jen, thank you so much once again for coming on the show. It's been an honor to have you on.
Of course, it's been an honor to be here. I'm so glad.
I guess we'll start closing out the show. Thank you for listening to the Hall H Show podcast, and thanks to our special guest, Jenapher Zheng. Please give her a follow and prepare to be amazed. We love putting the spotlight on independent pop culture creatives. If you have a suggestion for a potential guest, please let us know. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, YouTube, Spotify, and our website, hall-h.com. If you believe in our mission to be the voice of independent creators, we would appreciate a rating, hopefully 5 stars, and a comment on Apple Podcasts. And please spread the word on social media using the hashtag HallHShow. Peace, cheers, and stay safe out there.
Hell yeah.